Fantastic. I'm Tom Shillue, in for Greg on this very special edition of Gutfeld. Okay, let's do some jokes. The value of gold has surged to an all-time high, driven by reduced confidence in U.S. assets. It seems that everyone has now gotten in on the action. Oh, my gosh. On Sunday, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson attended an anti-ICE rally in his city. He didn't originally plan on marching, but was forced to after gang members stole his car. A woman who approached a snow leopard for a photo in Mongolia suffered severe facial wounds after the animal attacked her. Doctors say this proves depression isn't the only mental health risk associated with liking cats. A West Virginia librarian is facing charges for allegedly trying to recruit people to assassinate President Trump. Sadly, after her arrest, West Virginia now has 0 librarians.
Wow.
Last Saturday, Melania Trump hosted a sneak preview of her new Amazon studio film at the White House, and you can catch a replay of the last administration by streaming The Walking Dead. The musician Moby is calling for people to join him in boycotting companies that support Trump and ICE. He'll boycott them along with the sun, muscles, and having testicles. Twilight star Kristen Stewart said she plans to move out of the U.S. because of Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Denmark responded, offering us Greenland if she stays. And finally, Neil Young trashed Jeff Bezos and removed his entire music catalog from Amazon, admitting his decision is, quote, harmful to my record company in the short term. By the short term, Mr. Young was referring to the rest of his life. Okay, to the monologue. Do you remember movies like All the President's Men and The Post with Tom Hanks? Hollywood used to make movies about the glory days of the Washington Post. Now they're as forgotten as this picture of pre-steroid Jeff Bezos. And now, after reports that Bezos is set to unleash massive job cuts at the paper, staffers are actually turning to Hollywood for help. Yeah, according to a report, they're considering recruiting stars like Hanks and Meryl Streep to intervene on their behalf. And if there's one thing Hollywood stars are good at, it's helping a media company lose money with a horrible product. Apparently, it all started in recent days after the Post abruptly scrapped its plans to cover the upcoming Winter Olympics, with possible plans to dump its entire sports section and some of the foreign desk. Just don't dump Sally Forth or Kathy. Those ladies are hilarious. Meanwhile, the union representing staffers encouraged members to tag Bezos and his wife, Lauren Sanchez, in social media posts to get their attention. Sanchez said, if you want to get my husband's attention, get fake boobs. But from there, apparently, the brainstorming continued, and staffers wondered if they should contact Hanks, probably because he's the closest thing that Hollywood has to a religious figure. But here's the problem. Bezos isn't a movie critic, although his wife is an expert in makeup and special effects. He's a billionaire. He knows how to make money. And the paper has been bleeding cash for years, losing an estimated $100 million in 2024. Despite that, the journalists that work for the Post have been in revolt since last year over what they see as a MAGA infiltration of their beloved newspaper. It all started when Bezos didn't want the paper to endorse Kamala Harris in the last election. Some staffers lost their minds, saying trust has been lost. Editorial board members resigned as a result. Then Bezos asked the editorial board to provide some more balanced opinions, and more resignations ensued. They fled in droves, like Gutfeld viewers when they see this. I didn't see that in rehearsal. So it seems that anything short of full-throated campaigning for the Democratic Party is considered MAGA-coded by the mainstream media. And let's be honest, Bezos didn't ruin the Washington Post. The Washington Post ruined the Washington Post. They never had time for blue-collar voters from what they would call flyover states. People didn't cancel their subscriptions because of layoffs. Layoffs are happening because people stopped subscribing, because readers don't want lectures, and they don't want activist groupthink wrapped in journalism font. They don't want Democracy Dies in Darkness written by people who would block anyone who disagrees with them. And what irony that Hollywood is being asked to come to the rescue of a dying media outlet when they're both on the same path. The Washington Post might just be like the megaplexes and big-budget Hollywood blockbusters, a thing of the past. And like Forrest Gump once said, life is like a box of chocolates, and the Washington Post sucks. Let's welcome tonight's guest. He's woken up more people than Starbucks, host of Fox and Friends and One Nation, Brian Kilmeade. He has a dual income from stand-up and panhandling. Host of The Loftus Party, comedian Michael Loftus. As a kid, she dreamed of becoming Mrs. Foster Grant. Host of Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy! And it's a 20-minute hike from one end of his shoulders to the other. Former NWA World Champion and host of the Planet Tyrus podcast, Tyrus! Brian?
Yes.
What do you think? The Washington Post, they're in trouble, but they are. Do you think that was an excellent analogy? They're looking to Hollywood, but they're both in dying industries.
I think it's a great analogy, a sad analogy, and I think they're losing $100 million. It's really not a mystery. Well, why are they closing? We're losing money, yet everyone quit and they laid everybody off, and they're still losing money. I think it's hysterical that I said to myself, why are they asking Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep to bail them out? I did not know this. They played Ben Bradley and Katharine Graham, the owner and editor of the newspaper. So they called in, they pretend as if Tom Hanks is actually that person, and Meryl Streep is Katharine Graham. Like, will you pretend to be them, call up and tell Jeff Bezos not to fire us, which is crazy. I mean, that's like calling up Barbara Eden and say, could you blink twice so we don't lose $100 million? You played a genie on television. I'm just astounded by this. And Jeff Bezos, look, he didn't get rich by being stupid. He just said, this is it. I can't keep bailing this paper out, and you don't listen to me. You're not appreciative. You've been ripping them every chance you get. You do these dramatic walkouts, and now you want to bail out. I have no sympathy for these people.
That's right. Loftus, look, you remember the New York Times. They got in trouble. I think somebody lost his job over there because they allowed Tom Cotton to write one op-ed. And Jeff Bezos, he is not some MAGA right-winger. He's left-wing like all the rest of them. He just wants his property to survive.
Yeah, it's a money thing. And when you're actively throwing piles of money onto a fire, you stop. Like, I was laughing out loud when I found out the Washington Post had a sports section.
I know.
Like, who's like, oh my gosh, I have to catch up on last night's ball game. Hand me the Washington Post. Let's see what happened to local sports team. My God, the Redskins. Can we do something about that name? I can't bear to read it. It's horrible. Then they had a big uproar because they weren't going to go to cover the Olympics. And that's like their only hope of ever getting laid, right? You show up at the Winter Olympics, you can claim to be on a team. Like, you don't write for the Post. No, I'm a luge guy. I'm a luge guy.
I'm the bottom man, I'm the luge guy.
Yeah, the Washington Post having a sports section is hilarious. Get rid of it. It's as useless as a one-legged frog in a butt-kicking contest. Get him gone.
Tyrus, I mean, do you think Tom Hanks could help save the Washington Post?
Like, I used to have arguments with my brother because he was dumb. So I had Forrest Gump call him, give him a pep talk, and he started playing great football. He's a damn cure-all. No, this is, listen, they killed, and not just the Washington Post, but they picked a side. They broke the one rule in journalism. You don't pick a side. You tell the story and you let everybody else figure it out. You let the facts fall where they may. They decided to become martyrs. They didn't read the definition of a martyr. You're not a martyr till you're gone. So they will be martyrs for the left because their asses are gone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
That is true. Kennedy, people are trusting more independent journalists. Now, you know, they want to see, they want to go on YouTube, they want to see, Nick Shirley confronting people in the streets. Washington Post, it's old school, and, can they come back from that?
Well, every news outlet has the choice. It is your choice what you cover. And they could have sent people to Minneapolis with cameras. They could have investigated. any number of the fraud cases that people who worked in Minneapolis city government had been blowing the whistle about for years and years, but they chose not to do that. They chose not to cover the story about Kamala Harris's incompetence and, the billions of dollars that she raised for a losing presidential campaign that she was shoehorned into at the last minute. They chose not to cover Joe Biden's rapid decline that we could all see before our very eyes until it was too late. And, they wanted their paper to endorse a woman who couldn't string a sentence together. And, all of a sudden they're up in arms and they think that Tom Hanks is going to run into Jeff Bezos at a cocktail party and be like, hey, man, can you just save the Post? Because one time I pretended to be the guy who ran the Post. Can we just do that? And Jeff Bezos is like, I'm the captain now. Tom Hanks is like, a little too close to home.
But they're bloated. You can still make money in media. People are doing it. Obviously, people are doing it in podcasts. They're doing it with Substack.
Well,
It's
because
just their operations
you're
are too
making
big.
money
They should
off
fight
truth.
Jake Paul. That's what they should do. They should fight Jake Paul.
Everyone makes money by fighting him.
Exactly right. That's how they save the Post.
Even Jake Paul ain't taking that fight.
But could they pare down? Could the Washington Post go bare bones?
No, because their whole it's the Washington Post. What the sad part about it is, it's correctable. It's correctable. You fire the people up top who made these horrible decisions and brought in these DEI hires and these idiots who just wrote their truth, and you bring in some of these young people who are interested in the truth. They're seeing these old The President's Few Men and all these old with Robert De Niro, all these old movies. The reporters didn't care who got burned in finding the truth, because their whole goal was to be noble, to tell the people could rely on them. Who is going to rely on somebody who quotes things like, "We have been unburdened by what has been," as a great catchphrase? Nobody. They chose this fate. So there is no bailouts. And to show that they haven't learned, they tried to I think his favorite movie star is Tom Hanks. So if Tom Hanks tells him the paper must stay, he's got to do it. What kind of a moron does that? So just by evolution, it's time for their extinction. They've run out of time. And the comment is true.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.